Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns officially on the bye week. They will have a week off before facing the 49ers at Cleveland Browns Stadium a week from Sunday. Earlier today, former NFL wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson reacting to Kevin Stefanski telling the media that Deshaun Watson was cleared to play medically and it was his decision not to play against the Ravens. This is from FS1's Undisputed.
It's weird to me because I've never seen a coach disclose that type of information to the public. So why would you say that unless you're like down on him for not participating in the game and you saw Darian Thompson-Robinson, how he played, and you said, well, if you would have been in here, we'd have had a real opportunity to win this football game, something all of our eyes certainly knew if he was playing, they would have probably either won the game or been right in the game. I just don't know why he did it. Maybe he spoke out of turn and didn't really mean to say it that way, and we'll see him walk it back. I don't know, Sherm, to be honest with you. I've never seen it. I would be upset if I'm Deshaun Watson. I certainly would check him on it because at the end of the day, I'm going to be here for a minute, okay? So you better watch what you do because I'm not going nowhere for a minute.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. And Fred, I don't know about, that reaction. I think the reason he said it was to let you know that Deshaun Watson felt he couldn't go. And if a quarterback feels like he can't go, you don't send him out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, if a couple of years ago, if you rewind, Baker Mayfield was medically cleared and everybody was questioning why he was out there because, he was clearly not right. And Watson, I watched him on the sideline, and the little bit we watched last week, we're only see the first 15, 20 minutes. He only threw the ball a couple times really lightly, maybe 10, 15 yards, not with putting any zip on it. And he was doing the same thing Sunday morning. And so I just have to think that if he said he just didn't feel right, that's what they went with. They wouldn't even got to that point if he wouldn't have been medically cleared, with the structural part. So it was a little strange because Kevin Stefanski usually doesn't say a whole lot, give a lot of information. And I just really think that when he says he trusts him, he knows his own body, that's what he meant, is that he just felt like he couldn't do, what was necessary. And the other thing, if you put him out there and he gets hit again, he's out for the season, what's everybody going to say then? So it's one of those all the way around. I thought maybe even if he wasn't 100%, he would be more like a game manager, but still, you risk getting hurt. I go back, there's bigger issues than just that, and I think we'll talk about that. But as far as, all the way around, it's a very strange situation. I fully expected him to play. When he said to several in the locker room that he would be all right and he expected to play, I really think that most of the team thought he was going to play. I mean, here's a guy who played through 2 broken ribs and a punctured lung when he was with the Jaguars. He wasn't cleared to ride on the team plane and fly, so he took a bus to Jacksonville and played in the game. So I just have to think it comes down to that he just didn't feel like he could do what's necessary, and as the way he played the first 2 weeks and everybody criticized him, if he was out there throwing the ball 5-10 yards and looking bad, I don't think that would have really, went over too great as well.
Yeah, and he was playing the Jaguars when he was at the Texans. Do you think part of the problem is nobody exactly knows what is wrong with his throwing arm because the Browns don't want it public knowledge? I think that probably factors into everybody scratching their head as well.
Yeah, from everything I gather, it's a bruise, a contusion. I've had them. I think a lot of people played contact sports have those, and I watched him, use his shoulder and loosen it up. It looked like he had full range of motion. They say it's structurally sound. So, I mean, I've played baseball, had some shoulder issues, but it was more tendons and other factors. I just think it's like what they said, a bruise. And I guess after the game, they said there was no injuries. On Monday, players come in for treatment. They didn't say there was any injuries. We talked to Kevin Stefanski Wednesday before practice, and the only injury they brought up was that Kareem Hunt had ribs and a groin was sore, and Joel Bitonio had, I think, a knee, and he was going to be rested. Then we get out on the field, and in the little bit we can see, Watson clearly wasn't throwing. He was doing all the footwork, and then he would hold up and wouldn't throw it. And we don't talk to Stefanski on Thursdays because that's a coordinator day. So there was really no update on his condition until Friday. They did put on the injury report that he was limited with a shoulder, but that was obviously because he wasn't throwing. So it was just strange all the way around. Like you said, I don't think they wanted the information out there. I thought they were decoying a little bit with the Ravens, so they would have to prepare for but I think they were prepared totally for Watson themselves.
The thing that you kind of allude to, so the question becomes, why did you trade away a veteran backup in Joshua Dobbs? And when they did it, I just don't think it fit with what they were doing. You went out and you signed Shelby Harris on the defensive line. You signed Rodney McLeod. You signed Marquis. You got all these veterans, but you don't have a veteran backup quarterback.
Yeah, again, I go back a couple years ago when Case Keenum, they paid him $7 million to be the backup. He had done very well when Stefanski was his coordinator up in Minnesota. And Baker Mayfield, separated his shoulder. It was clear, obviously, he wasn't 100%. But Stefanski played Mayfield that whole season, I think, other than one game when there was a quick turnaround Thursday night. So I have to think they were totally planning on Watson. And go back, I blame Andrew Berry for what you just said. I wrote a column about this after the game, is that when you're putting all your chips in the basket for this year, knowing that Deshaun Watson runs the ball a lot, he's one hit away from being out, it's hard for me to believe that you feel totally confident in a rookie, to be one play away. And that's what they did. They went out and they gave Josh Dobbs a $2 million 1-year guaranteed contract, and that was before free agent or before the draft. And I agreed with that. He was very similar skill set. He got some experience starting for the Titans, and and it looked like they were kind of keeping him fresh the whole preseason. Obviously, it was Thompson Robinson's chance to play in the preseason, show what he can do, showed a lot of promise. But then you get to the end of training camp just as the season starts, and you trade Dobbs to the Cardinals, and you leave yourself with the rookie. 5th-round draft pick. I think he's got a lot of promise, but you put yourself in a position on what happened the other day. It could have happened in a game, and it could have happened, like it did. And I think it's unfair for Thompson Robinson to start against the Baltimore Ravens. I think since '99, John Harbaugh was 11-0 when the Browns started a rookie quarterback, and now he's 12-0. I mean, I don't care who you are. Usually you struggle in your first game, let alone against the Ravens. And so I put that on Andrew Berry because whether it was to save the $2 million or $1.5 million, whatever was guaranteed, and the Cardinals would take that, or to get the extra pick, a 5th-round pick, I just don't think it's worth it, at that point. Because if anything, you've seen what Dobbs has done. He started 4 games with the Cardinals. He has not thrown an interception, and Thompson Robinson threw 3 in his first game. If he just wouldn't throw interceptions, that was 14 points that the Ravens got off that. So I really think that's what jumped the tracks, because the defense came out 3 and out, and then you threw the interception, gave him the ball on the 10-yard line. One play, Jackson's in the end zone. It jump-started the Ravens' offense, and the defense had a lapse in the second quarter. And I just think that was a big factor. And I think Joshua Dobbs, you put yourself in a position, and I'm not saying Dobbs would have won the game, but I think you would have had at least a chance to win the game.
Yep, agreed wholeheartedly, and you can't get that chance back. You had a rookie quarterback, and you missed an opportunity to increase your chances of winning a game. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
This is Jim from Rochester, New York. Just a quick comment about Sunday's game, and I understand that we played with a rookie quarterback, but our joke for a head coach, Kevin Stefanski, did nothing to try and help him, period. His play calling is suspect at best. Every time he goes out there, it's the same plays. There's no way this guy should be a head coach. If we're going to keep him as a head coach, we're out of the playoffs again this year. He went with an empty backfield, a spread offense, and expected this guy to run it. That guy's a joke as a head coach, and unless somebody realizes it, we're going nowhere, period. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. The one thing I would say to that, the reason you go empty backfield is you can dictate what you can see what the coverages are, and he's a guy that can run with the ball. So play calling is it's like art. Some people aren't going to like it. I think Kevin Stefanski usually does a decent job. Do you think he could have done some stuff to help his rookie quarterback on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't know how you can go into that game with not a plan. It just didn't look like it was set up any different to make it easier for Thompson Robinson. I mean, like I said, he was throwing the ball. He had several balls that could have been intercepted. And it always comes down when they don't work, the play calling. I get that. But it just seemed like you could have put him in simpler positions. I think one of the things that's safer, at least in play calling, is when you got a quarterback that can run, is let him use his legs a little bit more, running out, picking up 5-6 yards, running to the sideline and so forth. And I think he ended up with 4 runs for the day, but I think I've probably used more of that. But when you shut down, when you have no running game, and you're making a rookie quarterback throw into a secondary that was banged up, but they had veteran players back there. It just fed right into their hands. And like I said, they needed to play from ahead, not from behind against the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson did what he did, and that was more than the Browns could overcome. It was basically over by halftime.
Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report now. I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Kevin Stefanski is the GOAT, you guys. I don't know what you guys are seeing, but I know what I'm seeing. His team is never ready for the moment. Too many penalties. The plays aren't working. He keeps trying to hand the ball off to Elijah Moore out of the backfield. How many times have you got to see that don't work before you stop it? Like I said, his team isn't disciplined. They're not up for the moment. What I actually see is a dejected team. I don't think they have any confidence in Kevin Stefanski anymore. He doesn't understand how to put his players in the best position to win. They are not in the best position to win. Nobody is. I hope the Browns are talking to Jim Harbaugh. I heard they were. I've been saying this for over 2 years now. Kevin's got to go. All right, I'm done. Bye.
Appreciate all the voicemails. I don't know that that the players don't respond to him. I think there's a level of frustration against the Ravens without question, but to say that the players don't respond to him, I don't think that's accurate.
It's just, it is frustrating. It is the NFL. And, you watch a college game and usually you know who's going to win before they play. It's just the way it is in the NFL. You watch the other day. I mean, the Bengals got stomped by the Texans, and the Steelers got stomped by the Texans and a rookie quarterback, and Bengals got beat as well big. And so it's just, it's in perspective. I talked to Mari Cooper about that, and it's so true. You're 2-2. If you would have got blown out by the Titans and then come back and beat the Ravens, you're still 2-2, but everybody's feeling really good going into the bye. But it was the opposite. You go out and you blow out the Titans, and then you come back and get blown out by the Ravens. So it just is hard to figure out the NFL. It's such a roller coaster. And I thought, the Browns defense we were seeing, and they didn't play like they had in the first 3 weeks. Is it all because of Lamar Jackson or what? I think it's somewhere in between. They're not the number one defense in the NFL, but they're not what they showed the other day. They had 2 bad drives, but you give up 14 points basically on field position with that, 2 interceptions where they started on the 10 and 38. So those were on the offense again. So the Browns just, if the offense is going to give the ball away and, the defense hasn't really taken the ball away, which I expected them to do a lot. I think, they're -7, which is almost unheard of for a team to even win a game. And, they're down at the bottom in those rankings. So I think those things kind of even themselves out. But it is the, and then you play the 49ers coming out the bye. So you almost hope, the way I look at a lot of things, you hope the 49ers beat the Cowboys and they're 5-0, because that coming into Cleveland, they might be due. And, that's just seems how it is in the NFL. Teams that don't need to win as much, end up, that's the one they stumble. So anyway, yeah, it is what it is, but I think the Browns, will be fine. And it's just getting some consistency. More concerned with the offense than the defense overall.
So when you look at the efficiencies, this is from Jake Trotter, ESPN, the offensive efficiency is 30th. Defense first, special team 6th. So the 2 areas where you brought in coordinators are in the top, almost top 5. And the offense, again, you're trying to figure some things out with Watson in the offense. But I agree with you. What do they do with the offense to try to get that right?
Yeah, I mean, starts with a running game. I mean, when it finished with 93 yards the other day, but that was kind of a false hope. They had 10 yards at halftime. And they really had 49 yards, I think, or 44 yards. And Strong had 49 on that last drive, one long run in garbage time when it was 28-3. And so, I mean, that you can't run the ball, with that little effectiveness, and especially with a rookie quarterback. Teams just know they pin back their ears and go get you. And so they got to get that going. I asked Stefanski about it yesterday, about possibly making some changes on the line. He said, no, we like what we have, and we're going to go with that. You paid a lot of money for Posick and Teller and Antonio, and obviously Conklin got hurt, but you got DeJuan Jones and Jedrick Wills. do you have anything you can do to, to get that running game going so you're not just sitting ducks? Obviously, you lose Nick Chubb, but you got to come up with something. I would like to see a little more quick hitting passes down the field. They're using, I think I talked to you before about this, Elijah Moore more east and west horizontally. He's more of a 4-3. Get him out down the field in the quick slants and balls, quick hitters where he can get the ball in the open field and not behind the line of scrimmage and hope that he can make something happen. The other day, Amari Cooper disappeared. He had one catch, primarily because you had a rookie quarterback. So I just think you got to start, and it starts with the run. You got to figure out something. These guys are getting paid to run block, find the hole and get the ball going. They had the first play of the game at Ford, had a great run, got called back by holding. And so you got to eliminate those penalties on the offensive line. And, I don't know at this point what you do. They have a 10-year veteran on the practice squad that could probably play left tackle. I haven't seen a lot about Jedrick Wills, but they just seem content to continue to put him out there, so they must feel he's better than any of their options. But all the way around, they're going to live and die with this. When you say 30th, that's on Kevin Stefanski. I mean, the offense is totally his baby now. You got the defense in pretty good hands and special teams in pretty good hands. So he's got to figure it out. And usually out of the bye week, they usually have a pretty good plan, but they have a pretty big foe coming up in the 49ers.
Is there anything against the Ravens that you saw that is concerning long-term?
Oh, nothing off the top other than the failure to run the ball. I mean, we know there's going to be a drop-off when Nick Chubb went down, but you're expecting, you got the same offensive line. You got, a lot of that, and you got the addition of Kareem Hunt, so you're assuming that you're going to be able to at least you went for over 200 yards in the first two games against the Bengals, against the Steelers. So you would think that you could get, at least half that, 100 yards or something. And again, the stats were deceiving last week because 49 came on the last drive. So, yeah, just a running game, and that lapse in the second quarter on the defense. You just can't – you got to hold them to field goals, in those situations, especially when you have a limited offensive shorthanded at quarterback.
So this is from ESPN, power rankings and the biggest issues on defense. They have the Browns ranked 11th, down a few spots. And they say the biggest issue on defense is forcing turnovers. We mentioned it earlier, they're negative. They're near the bottom of the league as far as the turnover differential. Turnovers are a funny thing, though. You can say forcing them, but the Browns are getting pressure on them. The coverage is good. You would assume if you continue to do those things, the turnovers will eventually come.
Well, they've been getting off the field quick, so they're not out there. Those first three games, it was like 19% of the time that they were holding the offense to. So they were 3 and out as the fewest number of plays most defenses have been across. But, yeah, a lot of times when the other day they stripped the ball from Jackson, but he was able to cover it up. Sometimes the ball bounces the wrong way. I'm pretty confident. We saw in the preseason, just even though it was different players, they were flying around and just, the pressure on the quarterback and the aggressiveness, they were creating turnovers. And I think those are going to come. But, yeah, it's the biggest statistic all coaches talk about is the turnover ratio. And it's almost surprising that they're -7 and they're still 2-2. So, if you can get that to the plus side, I think you're going to win a lot more games. And the other day it was the difference, 3 interceptions turned into 14 points for the for the Ravens, and I think that will come. The points allowed and takeaways are really what they emphasize, and so it is. I do see them in practice. They're swiping at the ball. They're trying to take it away. Jim Schwartz was asked that last week during our time with him, and he says, "Oh, that's going to be the criticism is our lack of turnovers." And basically, at that time, there wasn't much to find fault with, and but I'm pretty confident. I think it'll even itself out. I mean, they do have guys that can get after the quarterback, and guys like Myles Garrett, and that I think they're going to get strip sacks and fumbles and things like that, but we haven't seen much of it through 4 games for sure.
Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report now. I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll continue talking Browns. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. This from Dog Pound Daily. 3 players who have been disappointments in the first 4 weeks with the Browns. Number 3, they go with wide receiver Marquise Goodwin. That's Browns' deep threat. Number 2, defensive tackle rookie Siaka Ika. And number 1, they say Elijah Moore, wide receiver. Fred, as far as Goodwin and Ika go, they haven't really been on the field a whole lot. So, Elijah Moore, they're trying to get the ball in his hands, but I'm with you. You're wasting 4.3 speed if you're running east and west. Get him going north and south.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting targets, but they're all, under 10 yards. And it just seems like, he would be built for that quick out of the slot, quick slant, and it's pretty much, trying to beat that guy in the seam there. But it seems like when they send him deep, the quarterback doesn't get enough time. And the other day, Thompson Robinson, I think they hit his arm when they tried to throw deep to Goodwin. And, I do think I'm disappointed in the way he's been used. I thought he was going to be more of a wide receiver. They seem to be using him more like Stefanski had in mind, the Percy Harvin, but more of a gadget, razzle-dazzle, misdirection. The other day, he had 20-yard loss when he was trying to run the ball. It just seems, whether it was Anthony Schwartz or whatever, when they try to use those speed guys on those jet sweeps, they just haven't been working because they really can never get into their speed. The angles are being taken by the corners and the defense to knock them off balance. So, yeah, I think he has been a disappointment. I mean, he's second in the team. He's got 17 receptions, but 148 yards. Cooper has one more catch, but he has over 100 yards more, 111 yards more. He's throwing the ball downfield more, and Moore is just getting the underneath routes or out in the, out in the flat, the little flanker screens, and they're just not working. So Marquise Goodwin, it seems like he's only out there a few plays. Whenever he's on the field, it's like the defense knows he's running the deep pass. They tried the other day. I think he had his first catch for no yards. So, he's not going to play a whole lot, but we haven't seen, the deep threat stretching the field that we expected or we saw in the spring. And Ika, if you look on the inactives almost every week, they're all rookies. It's like 4 or 5 out of the 6 or so have been other than injured guys. They've all been rookies, and it just tells me Jim Schwartz isn't ready to play Isaiah McGuire and Siaka Ika and Ronnie Hickman and some of those guys until as the season goes on, when he gets a little more, trust in him. But I wouldn't say with Ike it's a disappointment. He's a positional type player, specifically more of a run stopper. And you brought in Shelby Harris, Dalvin Tomlinson for that, and you had Jordan Elliott. And Maurice Hurst is playing very well. I think he's been one of the most under-the-radar defensive players. So it's hard for Ika to get on the field right now. But I would agree Moore's been a disappointment. It's only 4 games, but they gotta find a way to give him his niche where he can be used and not just as a gadget player.
Let me ask you this. How do you think, and this is assuming Deshaun Watson's throwing shoulder is good to go, how do you get him on track? I mean, it almost seems like you're not playing to his strengths as much as you could, I guess is kind of how I feel.
Well, as far as Watson, I thought he was coming off his best game with the Browns. He completed 82% of his passes. Getting him in a rhythm, just like anybody, getting him started fast, I think he feeds on that. And you could see it against the Titans. He got going, and he looked good. He threw for 289 yards. Really, it was 329 yards, but they took away a 40-yard touchdown by blowing the whistle on Cooper. So what's disappointing is that instead of being able to build on that, he's out, and now you don't know how he's going to be, and you're going against the 49ers. So I think you're going to really have to take the same approach you did with the Titans. Get some easy throws, get him in a flow, get him going, and you don't want him running the ball like he got hurt on when he runs, a 10-yard up the middle, like quarterback draw. You gotta protect him and maybe run a little more outside, run to the sideline. But I just think that some quick throws, easy throws, and like I said, if the running game isn't a threat from the backfield, you got to find another way to keep the defense from stacking the box. And the way you do that is maybe some quick throws, easy throws, quick slant, tight end curl, different things like that.
All right, before we go to break, this is from ESPN. Which NFL players have helped themselves in their next contracts? And this is not household names, but they will get paid. They say Grant Delpit. And he has been very, very good in Jim Schwartz's defense.
Yeah, this is a guy you've been waiting for. You drafted him 44th. Andrew Berry's first draft in the top of the second round. And he tore his Achilles, in training camp. So basically, most people it takes over a year. So his rookie year really was his second year, and he was really slow. Last year, I felt like he was really not making much of an impact. In fact, one of the other writers and I at practice were looking at him and saying, man, you got to consider him a bust, where he was picked. And about that was about middle of the season, and it just seemed like the light went on the second half of last year. He played really well. He had like 3 interceptions, and he was showing up all over the place. And he said in training camp this year back in West Virginia that he wants to be the best player at his position, and he is determined to be great. And I think that he has shown that. Jim Schwartz said it's the best he's ever seen him play, and he said he followed him in college because he was interested in him coming out of LSU. So I think that speaks volumes. He is, coming up on his contract. I'm pretty sure the Browns will not let him go. And so I would think they would do whatever they can do to keep him and extend him, but he would definitely be one of the priorities because that's one of the few guys you've drafted and you got him to the point where you're saying, okay, this is what you drafted him for. And that's what you want, is to hit on those first and second rounders especially. And we haven't seen a lot of that over the years here with the Browns.
Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report now going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus a bye-week list to do. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, how you doing today? This is Randall, lifelong Browns fan, frequent caller. So a championship roster can only be based on a solid bench, right? We didn't have any anticipation of Nick Chubb or Deshaun Watson going down, but Dearness Johnson and Kobe Pizzette, who we had on our roster, really look good right now if we had those two guys. So what kind of moves do you think Andrew Berry's going to make? I don't think the running back room is that effective. In the quarterback room, I mean, with Deshaun Watson hurt, we look like we cannot beat anybody right now. So I'm concerned about what moves do you think our GM going to make to make our roster strong again. So love to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Fred, what do you think? Is there a move out there for, a running back or a quarter? I can't see them going out and getting Jonathan Taylor. That's going to be cost prohibitive.
I don't know if you can do a lot of things. NFL's not like Major League Baseball where a hitter can just, hit. He gets in the batter's box, starts hitting. It just seems like one of the reasons there's not been a lot of trades in the NFL over the years is because it does take time for guys to get acclimated, learn the plays, learn the offense, learn the defense, get in the system. I don't really know what you can do. I don't think the holes are as glaring as everybody thinks. Obviously, you lose Nick Chubb. I thought the move for Kareem Hunt's about the best you can do. You got a guy who wants to be here. He's familiar. He's, maybe not the same as he was when he was the NFL rushing champion, but I think he's just playing himself into shape. So I don't know if there's anybody out there that would instantly upgrade you. All the way across the board. It usually, is cost prohibitive. I mean, when you look at teams around the league, look at the Jets, and they lost Aaron Rodgers. They looked around. I think they traded for Mike White, who used to be with them. Zach Wilson was there. They weren't seemingly happy with him, but that's who they're going with. And, that's where they are. I don't think you can really make any moves that are going to be impactful at this time. I just think, that's what you do in the off season, and you can't prepare. You try to get depth. I think they have added depth, but as you can see, they clearly do not have the depth the Ravens do. They had 7 starters out the other day, and they had guys really you hadn't heard much of, and they didn't seem to miss a beat. Steelers have always kind of been that way as well. So Browns are adding depth, but they're not there yet, particularly at key positions, You really can't get too high-priced. Like at running back when they had, last year Kareem Hunt was on the last year, but he was at $6.5 million, and you had Chubb at $12.5 million. And so not too many teams have 2 running backs like that. They have maybe a star, but it's a drop-off. So I don't know what you can do. It's unfortunate, but, you got to get the guys you have and put them in position, to play better.
All right.
But I don't think it's as everybody's, painting the picture. It's like I said, perspective. You flip-flop the Titans in the Ravens game, and everybody's feeling good.
Yeah, that's fair. You always remember the last game, without question. All right, this is from Sports Illustrated. Browns bye-week to-do list on offense. Number 1, limit turnovers, negative plays, eliminate hero plays. Number 2, find a way to run the ball. And number 3, lean in to Deshaun Watson. I like all of those. Eliminating the turnovers has been the big thing. I mean, not only is the defense not turning the ball over, the offense is turning the ball over, and those are never good things.
Absolutely. I mean, you can make a case the Browns don't lose the Steelers. You know, even in the fourth quarter when they had that lead, somebody, you know, pointed out if they would have just taken a knee 3 plays and punted in the fourth quarter on every drive, they would have won the game. And, you know, they gave the Steelers 14 direct points on turnovers that resulted in touchdowns on the play. The other day, basically, the 2 interceptions, the one, he didn't get in the end zone, but he got to the 10-yard line. They scored the next play. And the one on the 38 of the Browns, they scored, you know, in a couple plays. So those turnovers were killers. And, you know, that's got to be eliminated. And you got to find the running game. You know, Nick Chubb's not coming back. We talked to Wyatt Teller yesterday. I was a little concerned that he mentioned Nick Chubb 4 or 5 times in his interview. Everybody misses him, but he's not going to come back. So you got to find a way to work around that. And maybe it's using Deshaun Watson a little more running, but spreading something out and getting Jerome Ford on track, or getting Pierre Strong on track, or Kareem Hunt. You know, somebody, you got to get an effective game going by committee somehow. And so I just think that the offense is the problem. I didn't necessarily think it was going to be this year, but it has been that way for the past couple years. Joe Woods had a defense, you know, playing pretty well in several games that the Browns lost because the offense couldn't score enough points. And so far, you know, I would feel a lot worse about the Browns if Deshaun Watson would have played the other day and that was the outcome. I mean, you didn't have your franchise quarterback, and how many teams, you know, could say that? Joe Burrow, his team got buried and he played. Maybe not 100%. Kenny Pickett got hurt, or Trubisky, they both got buried and their quarterbacks played. So, you know, I think Deshaun Watson on, you know, hitting on all cylinders, that's the question, gives the Browns kind of an equalizer effect overall.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks for having me.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Always really good stuff covering the Browns. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Jon Macri from Pro Football Focus straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson from the PFF NFL show, talking about their takeaways from that Browns-Ravens game where the Ravens came away with a 28-3 win.
So in this game, you had a couple short fields for the Ravens. Yep. Lamar Jackson, 10-yard touchdown to kick it off. Lamar had 2 rushing touchdowns, couple passing touchdowns in there. His throw, the first touchdown to Mark Andrews, I think it was the first one he threw up and away from coverage, was outstanding. I thought it was, I mean, when he threw it, I thought it might get picked. And then I was like, oh, no, it's too high. It's getting overthrown. And you look up, and Mark Andrews has the ball.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same touchdown we're talking about. There was a beautiful pass in the back of the end zone to Mark Andrews.
That's the one,
It was Charles Davis, I think, who said that, he didn't say who told him this, but he said, somebody told me this once. I've never forgotten it. Just put it on the top shelf where the kids can't get it, and I'll come down with it. Like, that's a really good way of describing that.
That was really good. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, Montana-esque against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So I thought Lamar played just a really nice, clean game. Zay Flowers' biggest play was a scramble drill. Lamar hit him for 43 yards. I thought that was really nice. Lamar finishes 15 of 19 for 186, the 2 touchdowns. Overall, just good game for the Ravens. Dominant performance by their defense, for whatever that's worth, again against DTR.
With that, let's welcome in Jon Macri from PFF, co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Show. John, I saw something, there was only like a 17% chance that completion they were talking about, the initial one from Lamar to Mark Andrews, it was the most improbable completion of the week. But where I'm going with that is, I don't think the Ravens really did anything that the Browns should be like, how are we going to stop that? They played well and the Browns didn't.
Yeah, the Ravens took advantage of their opportunities, right? Unfortunately, with the 3 interceptions and turnovers and things like that, they just basically capitalized on those kinds of things, which is the key to winning games a lot of the times, right? Especially you have a 5th-round rookie quarterback in there. Mistakes are inevitable. They were going to be made. Unfortunately, just a little too many mistakes in this game, although, some of the interceptions maybe not necessarily you can blame him too much for the one at the end of the game, just trying to force something to make it happen. And then there was the second one, I think might have been more of a miscommunication as well, kind of the overthrow. But there were definitely some mistakes in there, and the Ravens capitalized to their credit, right? And that's what you have to do in the NFL when those things happen.
So let's take a look at some of the top-graded defensive players by Pro Football Focus. And Maurice Hurst gets the top grade at almost a 90. Greg Newsome coming back from injury, 64.6. Juan Thornhill, 63.8. Miles Garrett, 63.7. Dalvin Tomlinson, 61.8. When you look at that, they gave up 28 points, so that's why some of those grades are lower. But defensive line still played pretty well. They were just on the field for too long.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And even Maurice Hurst, like he played the most defensive snaps for him this season, but he's been really solid all year long. I like Maurice Hurst quite a bit. Excuse me, that's his 3rd straight game, actually, with an 80-plus defensive grade. Decent pass rusher as well, has posted 2 pressures in 3 straight. Myles Garrett, I know that grade looks low, 63.7, but he had a 91.4 pass rush grade as well. That puts him at 94.0 on the year, which leads all defensive linemen. Just had a harder time playing run defense this week. It was his lowest run defensive performance on the year, 29.4 grade there. He was just basically in attack mode, right? Which you can't really do against this Ravens team. They have such a sound run game, a lot of gap scheme runs as well there. We're pulling offensive linemen are coming from the backside to take him out, but he was just looking to sack the quarterback a lot in this one and didn't really work on the run plays, unfortunately.
All right, let's take a look. Now let's look at the offensive side of the ball. And as you would guess, these grades not nearly as high. Ethan Posick, who banged up, highest graded offensive player with a 68.8. David Njoku, who had the accident with the fire pit, so he had burns on his face and his hands, played pretty well. You see the grade there. DeJuan Jones continues to play pretty well. Bitonio also graded out in the top 5, and Jerome Ford, the running back, 62.9. When you look at the offensive line and Jerome Ford, they weren't really able to get their running game where they needed it to be to help out the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, it was definitely not where it's needed to be, and unfortunately, it's been kind of the story of the early part of the year, right? The run blocking hasn't quite been as good as it was last year. They're ranked near the bottom of the league in run block grade so far this season, but last year they were a top 10 team in run blocking and very similar personnel, right? So I think there's potential that they can get back up there. But yeah, so far this year, for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked just yet, which obviously affects Jerome Ford and his yards per carry as well. But not having Nick Chubb there definitely makes a difference too, right?
So bye week coming up, so that gives them some time to tweak and do things. What do you do to help the run game if you're kind of trying to tweak things for the Browns?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for me, I think it just comes down to personnel, right? Because the scheme that they're running, which includes a lot of power, very little inside zone, very similar to what they did last year when they had that success. But looking at guys like Joel Bitonio, who was their highest graded run blocker last year and top 10 among all offensive linemen on the year, this year he's just a 58.0 run blocking grade, which is among the lowest in the league. Wyatt Teller, Ethan Pochich, they've been solid. So hopefully Pochich doesn't miss any time with that chest injury. I don't think he's expected to, but the tackles as well. DeJuan Jones, Jedrick Wills, unfortunately the lowest graded run blockers on the entire team so far this year. So I think, if those guys can kind of get it going, if they can spend some time getting back to what made last year so successful for them as run blockers. I know DeJuan Jones wasn't on the team, but there's potential there that they can get back. The talent is there. The personnel is there. I think it's just a matter of them clicking. And so far it hasn't this season in a couple tougher matchups, but I think there's potential that they can get there, basically.
Could you see them doing more running out of the shotgun, because that's something that seems to help Deshaun Watson? It would be a tweak, but you do have a bye week coming up, or do you think they kind of stick to what they are?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, it just depends on comfort for the quarterback, right? I think we had talked about it a little bit last week as well. Some quarterbacks don't like turning their back to the defense, but getting more play action, things like that into their overall offense as well kind of creates a cheat code a little bit, kind of brings up their linebackers for passing games, but it also could make them sit back a little bit on rundowns as well and create a little bit more space for those offensive linemen too. So I think there's a chance that we see, maybe some more shotgun plays, maybe more play action in the pass game. But yeah, I think just getting that offensive line kind of back focused to the way they were last year, because they were really good last year. I'm surprised to see them kind of struggling so far this year. When you look at another guy that I'm sure they're going to try to figure out how to get going, Elijah Moore, what do you do and how do you get the ball in his hands, in a place where he can do something with it? Mm-hmm. I think that's exactly it, right? I think, going back to what we saw in week 3, which was a lot more quick game, a lot more design screen passes in his direction to kind of get the ball in his hands and get him in space. He's one of the more dynamic playmakers on the team who you can hope make guys miss given his skill set. And we really didn't see any of that in week 4. And maybe some of that has to do with having DTR back there at quarterback, but going against the Baltimore defense with the rookie quarterback, I would think that it would alleviate some of the pressure from Dorian Thompson-Robinson and utilizing some of those quick screens in hopes that maybe Elijah Moore can break one. So would like to see them kind of go back to that, what we saw in week 3. So just 3 targets this week when he was averaging over 7.5 in the prior 3 weeks combined. They found success doing that. So I have to imagine they get back to that, whether it's Watson or Thompson-Robinson at quarterback in week 6.
Jon Macri from Pro Football Focus and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out of the break. We continue talking Browns, looking forward to the bye week and beyond. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jon Macri from Pro Football Focus. He is the co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Take a look at this as far as rookies and blocking goes. Paris Johnson Jr. ranked 7th out of 25 right tackles, pressure rate allowed 3.7. That's True Media PFF. His college teammate Browns rookie DeJuan Jones ranks 12th. And again, Paris Johnson, a first-round pick. Dwan Jones, a fourth-round pick. But Jones continues to be really effective. And when you look at that grade, John, how impressive has it been to see what Dwan Jones has done?
Yeah, I really like Dwan Jones, especially as a pass blocker, right? He's just a massive human. I think there's a lot of potential there. He hasn't allowed a sack all year as well. He looked really good in the preseason. So there's a decent enough sample size right now that he's looked good on that I think we, could feel pretty comfortable with him kind of going forward, at least as a pass blocker. But he's also improved as a run blocker too. I know I mentioned, him and Jedrick Wills are among the lower ranked run blockers on the team, but Jones, he's improved every single week as far as his run blocking grade goes. So I think there's potential that he could continue to get better. Again, such a big, massive player that, you take advantage of that size and the ability that he has as well. I think there's a lot to like about what Dwan Jones has shown already as a rookie.
So we mentioned Browns on a bye week. After the week off, they'll face the 49ers. Who are some guys you think that you like that could get rolling on the offensive side of the ball for the Browns after that bye?
Yeah, so Elijah Moore is definitely one. We touched on him already, but I think David Njoku is another one. He hasn't had even a 50-yard receiving game this season yet. It's still very early, but we know he's capable of 600-plus yards in a season, currently on pace for a little bit lower than that, but saw him finally get some more targets this past week, even though I know it wasn't with Watson, but feel like we could maybe see him continue his involvement post-bye week. Maybe we see some more work in the red zone as well for David Njoku. Just one red zone target so far this season, nothing in the end zone for him. So there's potential there that he could be a little bit more involved on the offense, and he's obviously a very talented player that I think could benefit the team in involving him more. And then the other guy for me, I think, would be Kareem Hunt. He was averaging over 7 carries per game last year, was more involved in the pass game as well. I know they just brought him in after the Nick Chubb injury, but I think post-bye, we could potentially see his workload increase as well, whether it's more as a runner or more in the passing game, especially if Jerome Ford continues to struggle or if they need more of a boost for that run game. I think Kareem Hunt could provide that as well.
Are you surprised when he was effective in Houston, he threw a lot of seam routes to the tight ends. We really, they have Akins, they have Njoku, Harrison Bryant. They just that hasn't been a part of what they've tried to do.
Yeah, really interesting. I've definitely been surprised at the lower involvement rate for Njoku at this point, because we did see him get decent involvement last year, even with Deshaun Watson. So I think they work on that. I think they can get him going. The offensive weapons, it's Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore. But, everybody else, I think Njoku has a potential there to be the third best target, potentially second best target on that offense. So I would imagine that he has to be more involved. And I think it's just a matter of Watson kind of going back to him, feeling more comfortable targeting him and the offense scheming some stuff up for him as well. So 7 targets this past week was at least nice to see for Njoku. So hopefully a step in the right direction. So
the Browns defense has been really good. The 3 turnovers against the Ravens kind of put them in a hole, and they were on the field a lot. Is their play on the defensive side of the football sustainable, do you think?
I feel like it is. This is a top 5 graded defense on the entire season. They're top 2 in team pass rush grade, top 3 in pressure rate and quick pressure rate. That defensive line is there. They're studs. They have a great defensive line. As long as those guys stay healthy, I think that plays a huge part in that being sustainable going forward. But their coverage has been solid as well. Their team secondary, so corners and safeties, they're top 10 in coverage grade, that secondary unit. I think the only really thing, the linebacker play, probably the main concern, but Jim Schwartz has found ways to kind of supplement that and kind of use these guys situationally so they're not exposed on a regular basis and play to their strengths depending on the situation. So I do. I'm optimistic. I think it is sustainable. There are some really good pieces there that as long as they stay healthy again, they should continue to be one of the better defenses in the league going forward, with a shot really at being the best, as long as there isn't significant regression, which there aren't really signs of at the moment.
The other thing that comes into mind when you talk about it, so the pressure rate's good, the coverage is good. Are you surprised they haven't had the turnovers? And are turnovers more a function of, opportunity, quote unquote, luck, if you will?
Yeah, we find turnovers definitely they're a little bit more unstable week to week, year to year kind of thing. A lot of it is dependent on the offense that they're playing against, right? So I think those will come based on how well they're playing. And same thing with sacks too, right? They're sixth in sack conversion rate, which is fine, but looking at how well they are at rushing the passer, they could even be higher than that, right? So a lot of those things generally fall on the offense that they're playing against, although the potential is definitely there for them to create turnovers, especially in the form of their pass rush and creating maybe some fumbles for quarterbacks and things like that, with getting Myles Garrett going after the quarterback. So the turnovers I think will come just based on how well they've played.
Jon Macri, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jon.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Jon Macri, make sure you check him out, Pro Football Focus. He is the co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.